Welcome back to the Papa Meat channel. How you doing? How you doing? Coming in and sitting down because today we are talking about landlords. A good portion of you just cried. You threw up. Maybe you pissed your pants a little bit. But we're also going to talk about some, maybe a little nasty tenants, little parasites called squatters. Some people look at those as freedom fighters. Landlords and squatters, two groups that are constantly at odds with each other, even more than cyclists and car drivers. Not to dig off that pile of worms, right? But a squatter, for people who don't know, is essentially someone who occupies a piece of land that doesn't belong to them. In the process, they can utilize squatters' rights and attempt to permanently take over the property for themselves.
Hello, sir.
You're delusional. You cannot do anything because the police said they will investigate it within a week, so they will come back to us.
May
so
I please?
as far as that, you have to leave.
Pretty funny if, you know, the landlord is like a slumlord and he's a dickhead. Not so funny if you're just like, this is just some extra revenue for me. This is my grandma's house. Please don't live here. Squatters' rights state that these people may be able to take over a piece of property through adverse possession. They can legally own a property given that they live there for an extended period of time, upkeep the property, pay taxes, as well as many other stipulations. There are benefits to these laws, like allowing unused properties not to be wasted, especially today, where everyone is encouraged to buy up as much property as you possibly can to get rich, right? That's where the slumlords come from. People price gouging and raising stuff out, gentrification and pushing people out of areas. At least this way, if it's a shitty building and someone wants to live there, let them live there, dude. Kicking out a squatter can end up becoming a stressful and lengthy legal process. For some landlords that have multiple properties, this drives them banana sandwich.
In 6 months, you haven't paid rent. It's my house.
But that's not to say that we should feel bad for all landlords. God, we should feel bad for barely any landlords, because many of them are downright evil.
New report shows how much rent prices increased across Los Angeles.
The housing crisis has long been an issue in Los Angeles thanks to expensive rent.
In the wake of two of the most destructive fires in state history, a spike in rent gouging across LA County.
Even this year, it was discovered that LA property owners began spiking up their rent to take advantage of desperate people who just had their homes destroyed in the wildfires. You like that? But landlords have also begun to take to the internet and become influencers themselves, landlord influencers.
This is what 14,000 is gonna get you in San Antonio, Texas. It's a speed tour, so let's take a look. Here we go, we see the big beautiful yellow door right there. I don't know why they made it yellow, but they did.
Or on TikTok, it's called #PropertyTalk. Nowadays, there are tons of landlord influencers that give us a peek into their day-to-day lives while flexing their wealth and pushing their online courses, because as we know from our boy Andy Elliott, if you're a rich man, you have to put it in a package that people can buy on how they can become a rich man.
I thought about buying one and then realized that's how they make their money.
That's how they become wealthy, is because there's people that I'll teach you the secrets, when really there's probably like a 12-year-old kid from Illinois who uploaded a video that broke down, you know, like how owning property works or something. But ultimately, they want to sell you the idea that you need to buy tons of property and become a landlord to live a good life, to have that secure passive income life, right?
Here's what it takes to have $10,000 a month in passive income. You know, everybody's spoiled. I've been in business for 31 years. I started with interest rates at 10 and 12%. So literally at 4%, and people are complaining now at 6%, you guys are spoiled.
Let the properties work for you. That's what a lot of them say. When this career started taking off, the first thing people were saying is, you gotta get property. You gotta invest into property. Which, instead of just being like, why don't you just invest into a home for yourself? They were like, why don't you go in on an apartment complex? And I'm like, what the well, I know about doing that. A lot of these people, all of these people that participate in this kind of content are absolute garbage scum. Like my boy Samuel Leeds, a landlord influencer who makes videos like this one where he giddily explains how you can convert multiple rooms in a house, including bathrooms, mind you, into bedrooms in order to hike up the prices astronomically.
This was a bathroom. She ripped it out and put a bed in it.
You ever walk into a 2-bedroom house and you're just like, this is a studio apartment? My boy Samuel Leeds disagrees. Check this one out.
Right now, I'm standing in Huddersfield. These houses, they rent out for about £1,000 a month. Big houses. However, my friend JL Spoon, how you doing?
Hi.
We met 6 years ago. I've been mentoring her.
God damn, Sam, you are out of breath. I've been mentoring her. Trying to do more.
Living in a council flat?
Yes, I was.
In and out of hostels?
Now I'm a property billionaire.
Now she's a property millionaire. How? Because she doesn't get £1,000 for this house. She recently bought this house and is renting it out for how?
God, Samuel is just also disgusting. He looks like he's made of butter. Doesn't he? This is the kind of guy that I just want to see a video of him, like just some guy, it could be anybody, just takes like a metal bat and just hits him over the back of the head and he's just blind. And he would still talk. He's like, okay, so I'm blind. That doesn't mean that I can't go out and convert these rooms.
I was looking at a house, technically like 6 bedrooms, but 3 of them were in the basement. But they couldn't call them bedrooms because the ceiling was too short.
Yeah, because it would be like a hobbit was living there. Yeah, I've had to rent a house like that before. Like it's 3 bedrooms, and me and my wife were all excited because we're like, oh. Like we can each have like our bedroom, and then you'll have like a little art room and I'll have an art room. And then we like went downstairs and I was like, this is depressing. And she was like, oh, I'm shorter than you. And I'm like, I don't want you to be down here in this hobbit hole. Other influencers will record themselves calling their tenants to reveal that they are massively raising their rent. In this case, from $1,200 to $2,200. Isn't that fun? Isn't that great? I love that I get to watch somebody do this and they're all giddy doing it.
You're currently rented for $1,100 in that house and it's in Miami. It's a pretty low price in today's market. I wanted to see if you wanted to stay there.
Yeah, I was planning on staying. I don't want to move, and I have been here for over 10 years.
I would want you to stay, but we would have to raise it a little bit.
Okay, and?
There's houses in that area going for $2,500. You could take the lower end of $2,200.
Are you kidding me? That has to be a joke. $2,500. That's over double my current rent.
I like how also he's adding the emojis and he's like smiling while doing it, being like, she's like, I can't afford, I've been here 10 years. And he's like,
I'm already working 2 jobs as it is. Where do you want me to go now?
Oh, poor bitch. Once again, dude. Ugh. So today I thought we'd look at some particularly wild squatting stories to maybe get the blood boiling in a nice way where you're just like, you know what? Yeah. Fuck 'em. Before diving into some of the most insane landlords you've ever seen.
Right. Yeah, right.
Get out of my face.
I'm not gonna move. This is my house.
Cool. This is harassment. Bye.
Oh.
I'm trying to, I don't know, I feel like, are we manipulating people by showing the squatters and then also being like, kill every landlord? I don't know. Both things are interesting. I particularly, if I owned a house and I was just like, yeah, you know what, I got another house and I found out that a dude was squatting there and he just gets to just take over my property. I don't think I'd enjoy that. But also giggling and calling people on the phone, having to raise your rent.
That guy should be squatted on.
That should be illegal. But first, before we get into the juicy landlord stuff, let's talk about squatter stories, which we could talk about a squatter who moved into a home and then sold it for £540,000. A squatter from London named Keith Best was doing a painting job in his neighborhood when he spotted a large, broken down, abandoned flat in East London in 1997. The house had belonged to Colin Curtis after it was given to him by his mother Doris when she died. Curtis eventually inherited another property and moved out in 1996, simply abandoning it without ever coming back to check on it. He's just like, I'm just gone. Which maybe that's how they do things, and Keith slowly began his renovation, sinking £150,000 into the property out of pocket, despite not even owning it. He admitted in an adverse possession claim, but happened to do so only weeks after it was criminalized. The Curtis family discovered what he was doing, which began a lengthy legal battle over who owned the property. By the end, Keith had spent £400,000 in legal fees, as well as £245,000 to Doris's granddaughter as compensation. Okay, first off, where the is he getting this money from? Because Doris was an old retired woman, Keith was under harsh ridicule. He told reporters, I've been portrayed as a thief who cheated an old man out of his home, but that's not true. The whole thing has been a nightmare. It affected me health. It cost me a lot of money. I never made anything from this, and it's being made out that I robbed a pensioner. I have not made a profit. The negative press led to him to losing his job while having to return to court 8 times after failing to settle the dispute with the family peacefully. The stress was so great, according to Keith, that it led to the mental decline and the eventual death to his mother. It killed me mom. She saw the effect it was having on me. It was awful. I regret the impact it had on my health, and I didn't make any money from this.
He keeps saying that.
He's like, it killed my mom, and I also didn't make a single dime. It was only in 2014 when the decision to criminalize adverse possession was overruled, and he was finally successful in gaining ownership. That motherfucker was in a 20-year battle. Curtis attempted a counterclaim, but failed and eventually died in 2018. Curtis couldn't even hold it. Keith recently sold the home for £540,000 and retired, now residing in a large home in Essex. I did not make a dime. Until now. Which also, $540,000 seems like he still didn't. I lost money on it. With the court fees and everything else, he just sold it. He's like, even Stevens. He's just waiting for Curtis to die. He's like, I'm gonna take it to the fucking thrive. Or we could talk about a homeowner who was taken to jail. In 2024, a woman from Clayton County was arrested after her home was taken over by alleged squatters. A woman named Hale had one day discovered a woman named Sakamiya Johnson inside her home, but when she called the police, they refused to have her removed. Under the Georgia Squatter Reform Act, she did qualify as a squatter because she was related to the partner of a tenant who was recently evicted from the property. She even had a signed order that denied that she was a squatter. What followed was a several-month-long court case that eventually ended in Hale's favor 3 months later. However, she found herself in more trouble when it was time to reclaim her property. Hale planned to clean up the house now that it would soon belong to her, only to find that the locks were all broken. Soon, Sakamiya and a man she brought with her had forced their way into the home. When cops arrived, they deemed Hale's action as an illegal eviction since she was forcibly removing items that belonged to Sakamiya, even going as far to yell, "Leave before I get my gun." Because Hale had not yet received the proper documents to legally evict a tenant, she was charged with criminal trespassing and a misdemeanor count of terroristic threats. Hale was thrown into a police car and forced to stay the night in prison. Eventually, she was able to successfully reclaim her home.
You gotta be careful. My parents had squatters.
How long did they occupy the house for?
A couple months, because we were in California. Because the thing is the house was actually being foreclosed on. The foreclosure letter got sent to the tenants, and they opened the mail, which is illegal. So then they just decided, we're not going to pay.
Didn't you say that they left the house in absolute disgust?
That was a different tenant. My parents had 3 houses.
Your parents are slumlords?
Yeah.
Today's video is sponsored by Hungry Root. Have you ever wanted a personal shopper for groceries or a nutritionist nearby telling you what to eat? I know I do. Well, now you can have both with Hungry Root. They make it super easy to eat high-quality, nutritious food and achieve your health goals. If you're looking for anti-inflammatory, gut-friendly, gluten-free, or dairy-free, all you gotta do is let Hungry Root know, and they will fill your cart with personalized recommendations that only get better with time. They ask you a bunch of questions like, what do you like to eat? How much do you like to spend per week? And then they can begin recommending things that fit your life. Because when you're trying to eat healthy, it can be easy to know what to leave out, but sometimes it's just as hard to find what you should be eating. That's why I'm using Hungry Root to help me steer me towards meals that will keep me on my health goals. Hungry Root has over 15,000 recipes to share, so there's something for everyone. Plus, all of Hungry Root's recipes can be made in just 15 minutes or less. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Click the link below or go to hungryroot.com and use code PAPAMEAT. That's 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life at hungryroot.com with code PAPAMEAT.
Thank you, Hungry Root, for sponsoring the video. Back to the video.
Now let's take a look at one of the most historic cases of squatting, which took place in 1969 in London. Didn't know so many London cases here, huh? A group of organized hippies created the London Street Common after taking over a 100-room mansion at 114 Piccadilly in London's West End. It happened during a time of radical politics fueled by a decade of rock and anti-establishment sentiment. And on top of this, there was a housing shortage after World War II that made it incredibly hard to find shelter. Many of the remaining buildings were left vacant by property owners waiting for its development value to increase. A bunch of broken buildings from the war, and they're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna leave it. And then whenever it actually starts to spike, that's when I'll start renovating it, and then it'll be worth however much more. The group's reasoning behind this act was to show the world that the city doesn't get to just belong to the rich people in power. Unfortunate, because yeah, it does. I mean, that's just... The group stormed the building, put up barricades, and even installed a homemade drawbridge over a dry moat in order to keep unwanted visitors at bay. It was renamed Hippie Dilly. Honestly, dude, creating a drawbridge is sick. I want a drawbridge. What do I have to do to get a drawbridge in my life, dude? Probably can't be that hard to make nowadays, right? You're not a big, crazy one, but just like a little... some chain to get some Home Depot or something. Hordes of hippies, drug dealers, runaways, and more began living in the building. It was so populated that they had to host house meetings and give people jobs, like contacting local restaurants and catering companies that were sympathetic to their cause, because they need food, to also feed all of these people. It basically became a homeless shelter, is what it became. The place became a media sensation, to the point where some celebrities would show up, take pictures, and attempt to be seen as hip. Yeah, Mick Jagger with his giant mansion.
Oi, you guys are really giving it to him, eh?
Many were outraged by their actions, and protesters began chanting things like, "Monkeys get back to the zoo." Those who tried to get into the property were met by members of Hell's Angels, who aided them with security to return for housing.
Hell's Angels is in Britain?
I guess, dude. I don't know if they fly over with their motorcycles. I like to imagine they're on the inside the plane. We gotta help them, man. They refused to comply with eviction notices, and it only took 3 weeks before the entire mansion was raided by police officers. They gained access by having a few officers trick the security into thinking they wanted to help an ill pregnant woman inside. Classic ruse. Only to send in 200 more officers. There's a pregnant lady in there who needs help. Oh, really? Hippies started chucking iron bars, wooden planks, and other items around the house at the officers, but it was all shut down fairly quickly. There were a few arrests, but a majority of the residents left without pushback. They're just like, just get out of here. Just bloody well get out of this home. This event ignited a squatters movement that continued for many, many years, falling into the 70s, probably the 80s, y'all. But then we have landlords. Let's just say landlords, yes, they price gouge. There's a lack of human empathy that goes into the business of that. But we can also talk about a landlord who gave its tenants lead poisoning. Yeah. In 2024, pretty recently, a property management company named Lamore rented out apartments in Brooklyn, New York that led to young children getting lead poisoning. Tenants were interested in the property after being lied to about the conditions. Fast forward to when they moved in, and tenants were met with leaks, mold, rodent infestations, elevated levels of lead from the paint, mold again, and water leaks. The pictures are disgusting. And in the end, 130 young children tested positive for elevated blood lead levels since 2012. Apparently, this is one of the many cases where the company had screwed its tenants over with their living conditions, reaching housing violations of over 30,000 people. In court, they were forced to pay $6.5 million in settlements, a relief that is considered historic for a case of this kind. $3 million of that settlement would go directly to the tenants impacted by the poor living conditions. So that's nice. At least there's something, at least it ends on a relatively healthy note. I will say, to be in this position where you're just like, okay, fine, I'll sign the lease. I'll go do, we'll live here. And to show up and you're just like, well, I mean, I can't afford anything else. Tragic, man. Especially in a beautiful country like this. How the hell could that happen?
In a beautiful city like New York.
A beautiful, super clean city like New York. Brooklyn, New York, mind you. Let's start talking about some of the tenants, y'all. This headline is supposed to be, I think, shocking, but at the same time, after all we've read so far, it makes me just be like, sweet. Tenant takes revenge, blows up apartment. It's cool if no one else gets hurt. Otherwise, that's a bit of an overreaction. In 2022, a man in his 30s was due to be evicted by his landlord. He knew it was coming. He was so infuriated about it that he purposely set up a gas explosion to blow up his apartment. Scratch what I said. Scratch what I said about it's cool if no one else gets hurt. I was just kidding about that, okay? The entire roof was blown off the building, sending debris down the street and causing neighbors to be evacuated. Nobody was injured, and the man is now in custody. All right, never mind. Don't do that. I feel like I should really clarify. I'm joshing, all right? Or we could talk about the tenant who was living in the cellar of a building dies in a fire. In 2019, a 32-year-old man named Philip Sheridan died in a fire that spread throughout his converted basement in Leeds. It was discovered that Humraz Shahid, the landlord, did little to keep the property suitable for human habitation. The cellar only had one entrance with a faulty handle that was already partly blocked by a stove. You have to jiggle it. You have to jiggle it. He's like, I can't. He's like, sorry, my new stove is here. I don't want to move. There was no fire alarm or smoke detector either down there. I like how he set it up and he couldn't even bother. You'll smell the smoke. You'll wake up and run. It'll be fine. The source of the fire that killed Philip was the stove itself, so he had to run through the fire just to save himself. He ended up suffering severe burns all over his body before falling to the floor outside of the building, passing away after a short time in the hospital. It was clear that everything that happened was 100% avoidable, and Shahid was arrested and given a 13-month prison sentence. That's it? 13 months? A year? They're like, a little over a year, Shahid. 13 months. What of the Weber grill? What happened with my Weber stove? Like, it burnt up. Just put a bullet in my head. Or we could talk about my boy Daniel Ohib Shalom. There's no way I'm saying... Is that... how you say that?
Daniel Ohib Shalom.
That is in New York City, maybe. Ohib Shalom? I do not think I'm saying that right. Daniel Ohib Shalom is infamously known as one of the worst landlords in New York City for years of neglect given to his properties.
Daniel Oheb Shalom's apartments are notorious for deplorable conditions.
He already has a reputation. Daniel Ohib Shalom, they're just like, don't stay at his place, whatever you do. It was so bad that he was given jail time after accruing 700 plus housing violations on top of harassing tenants constantly. I hate this motherfucker. He would refuse to make repairs to the point that the doors no longer had working locks and the walls themselves were falling apart. And you can see some of the photos here. I like how he's just like, I'm not gonna repair it, and we're raising the rent. They put a Chipotle down the block. I'm raising the rent. That's the kind of landlord I want to be. I saw a Chick-fil-A, a Raising Cane's, and a Chipotle while raising the rent. There's a Costco 2 miles away. I saw your Honda Civic pull in. I know you're gonna drive that while raising the rent. It was believed that the landlords wanted to create living conditions horrible enough to force everyone to leave so that he could renovate and sell the buildings at a higher value. Is that fun? Did you like that? If you don't like it, leave. You know what he's gonna do to sell it for a higher value? He's gonna go to Home Depot and be like, "What's the cheapest sink?" And they're like, "That one." He's like, I'll take like 12 of them."
Do the landlord special, baby.
Landlord special. Paint it over. There's cracks in the wall. All right, it's good to go. One man recounts the condition, stating, quote, "Imagine waking up in the middle of the night with smoke throughout the building and the smell of burning oil because of a boiler that was never maintained. Imagine fighting cancer and not having heat and water."
They would withdraw the rent straight out of our bank account every month, but then we get no heat for 5 days every week. 3 days with heat, the rest of the time no heat, no hot water.
He's like, "There's a new Thai curry place open on the block. We're raising the rent. The bodega on the corner just became organic. We're raising the rent. You can now buy organic Doritos from the bodega and a boarhead sandwich. We're raising the rent." To avoid getting caught and forced to fix his building's many problems, he would forge documents regarding proof of upkeep and even listed other associates of ownership documents so it couldn't be tied back to him. What a greasy little man. I like how he's just like, "I crafted this thing with AI and I signed it, and I also signed it in my dead niece's name, so people will never know that it was me. I'm Daniel. I am raising the rent." According to a DA, there was an instance in which the ceiling was so damaged that it collapsed and injured a small child.
Suddenly I heard him scream, and when I went into the room, the ceiling had collapsed over him. And thankfully, you know, it wasn't a major injury, but I mean, it hit his head.
It just fell on a child, and he's just like, were you jumping around? Is this because I raised the rent? He was then sent back to prison a second time to serve 60-day sentence after he failed to complete repairs at 2 properties that were ordered by the courts. Dude, just fix the property. Actual slumlord behavior. I don't have it. Well, if I have to repair it, I'm raising the rent. When the man was sent to jail, residents of 2 of his Washington Heights buildings rallied together to push the city to let them own the property as a tenant-owned co-op. That'd be really funny. You're gonna let them live in this wasp nest? All right, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens when they have to raise the rent. And then it turns into a different story when we become a landowner, all right? They received tons of support from city council members, and a conversation began about helping to set up proper financing for renovations, as well as giving them community ownership of the building. News came out that he was punched in the face soon after being arrested, which was applauded by all the tenants. And just a little cherry on top, he got arrested and someone just beat the hell out of him, and everyone's just like, yeah! He's like, "So what am I gonna do? My hands are tied. I only have 700 other buildings in New York City." Okay. All right. We're all officially barbarians now. The Mongolians have come back, and this is now China. It's like, what are you talking about, Daniel? Yeah, the guy next to him is just like, "Stop your crying. My stove." And they're in the same prison cell. Just kill me in my sleep. Daniel's like, I'll buy you a new stove. Oh, you, Daniel Oshalo.
Did you have any really bad landlords?
Yeah, dude. I think that there's ethical ways of also just being like, I have to raise it. Property values going up to meet demands with whatever. I need to make my end too. Maybe there isn't an ethical way of being a landlord. I don't know. Especially whenever I was living in like lower income housing and stuff. Those are always the worst, at least in my experience. And then you would have to put down this huge deposit for cleaning, and you never got it back. At the beginning, when you move into an apartment, you take pictures of all the stuff where you're like, hey, there's this, so you don't get charged with that end. At the end, the woman sent back the pictures that we took at the beginning of our stay that was cleaned and that was clean, and said, "Oh, well, these are the things that we have to clean, so you're not getting your deposit back." And we were like, that's the pictures we took 12 months ago. And they're just like, shot, and they just ghosted us. And what can you do? And at the end of the day, you have to like live with it, just being like, well, there goes like a $300 to $500 deposit or whatever. And I think that's where they get you too, because they're just like, once again, I'm talking on my ass, but I would say like 90% of people don't get their deposit back easily. Like, it's just some shit where it's like, well, the blinds are messed up. It's like, those are $30 blinds on top of a fucking $1,200 deposit or whatever the fuck it is. But, you know, landlords can be creeps. So let's talk about some creepy landlords, such as a landlord who hides cameras in the women's room. That's got to happen everywhere. That's got to be such a common thing. That's also why, like, if I stay in a hotel and stuff, I'll put like bags in front of outlets, like little stuff like that, where I've seen in shows where it's like, oh, there's a camera there. I've seen so much stuff. I'm just creeped out by it. How creepy is it? Not that I give a shit about anybody really seeing like my tiny pig cock or anything like that, but I'm just like, just weird feeling like somebody's like taking that video and they're doing whatever with it.
Just watching you.
Yeah, hawking loogies in my hand and going to town on my cock and then ordering DoorDash, not washing my hands and eating Subway. That can't get out there. In 2025, Edgar Ramirez Dijadio, a landlord from Palm Beach County, was arrested after he hid a camera on the ceiling of an apartment he was renting out to a female tenant. What did I tell you, dude? Probably in the fire alarm, I bet you anything. She had only been living there for a few days before her boyfriend noticed her bright green light coming out of the device on the ceiling. He's like, have you not noticed this? It's a smoke alarm. It means it's good. It's healthy in here. He brought it up to Edgar, who claimed it was a device that strengthened the Wi-Fi signal. Suspicious. She asked him to cover it with a piece of tape. He ended up just using a small piece to cover up just the blinking light part. She thought something strange was going on and removed the device to find that there was an SD card inside of it that stored various photos of her in the room. The man was charged with digital voyeurism with a bond set to $7,500. I like to leave up these pictures for a second just to be like, I don't know if you're ever in Palm Beach and he's like, hey, you want to come check out that deal? Be like, I think I'm going to pass. Also, what's creepy about that too, how many people has he done this to? How many times do these landlords, they're like, they show you the place, they're all nice, and they're just like, you gotta use the restroom, just in there. And they just have people come in, you know? He's like, I gotta get my fix before the next person comes in. Just right back there. Ooh, there's no toilet paper, I'll go run get some. Just sit there and wait. Just sit there and wait.
That's how they decide who they're gonna rent it out.
Yeah, but whoever takes the smelliest shit, he's like, those are gonna be some juicy pics. Or we can talk about a landlord who stole some tenants' lingerie. Just seeing the picture of him immediately. Like how he's just like, I just don't know what I did wrong. That's what his face looks like. Oh, it smelled good. Is it a crime for things to smell good? It's like, no, it's a crime that you stole it, you fucking creep. He's like, okay, news to my ears, man. In 2021, a 45-year-old landlord from Ohio named Ivan Rock was accused of illegal and disgusting behavior by one of his female tenants. According to the victim, she had seen Rock's behavior shift to become more aggressive and menacing over time. Jesus. At one point, she had returned to her home to find him sleeping on her couch naked.
It was an accident.
Oh, this isn't my house. Darn it. She returned home to find that Ivan had come into her place to leave her brand new lingerie as well as condoms for her. Eventually, he wanted her out of the house, calling her to say that he already packed all of her belongings. She came home and noticed that she was missing a digital camera as well as a pair of lingerie.
The one he gave.
Yeah, I'm sorry I took back my gift, dude. The unappreciated gift. She told police that she became terrified of the man to the point of committing to leave out of fear for what he might do next. After talking to the police, Rock was arrested on charges of menacing and petty theft charges, and his bond was set to $2,500. What about the naked incident? Okay, so there's no oopsie daisies, okay? That's all he got charged for, was just being like, you took some of her panties, Rock admitted. He's like, okay. Well, so it was on her couch naked. He's like, they're like, shh. We didn't hear that part. All right, now here's $2,500 bail bond, Rock. Thank you. In any case, the issue between squatters and landlord is a complex one that I will not get involved in. I'm not opening that can of worms. I'm not doing it. Death to every landlord. There are extreme cases, sure, but in reality, most people just want a roof over their heads and just a place to stay and feel safe and not be price gouged. So if you do have to be a landlord and be one of these people that are just like, I have to raise the rent, at least make the places bearable to live in. Don't be putting cameras in there and stealing lingerie, showing up naked to your tenant's house, that kind of thing. That I feel like that's at least enough of a hand. Okay, fine. And also give people back their deposits. Give the deposits back. I have to get a cleaning guy in here, and I mean, it's gonna take him he's gonna be here all day. She's like, there's one bedroom. Yeah, but it's probably gonna cost $1,700. Probably. Never mind. Fuck it. Kill your landlords. I'll see you next time.